Hello, it's Sandy Weiner, and I'm getting little loves here. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today. I am the dating and relationship coach for women over 40, but I also help people of all ages and men too. So we are going to talk today about being single during the holidays. It can be very challenging for many people. We end up at people's tables and they ask awkward questions, and I want to help you guys be able to navigate through the holidays without going crazy and while also staying happy. So the first thing I want to say is that single is not a disease. It is a state of relationship, and it's important for you to own where you are and be proud of who you are and where you are. I think a lot of single people are happy, and a lot of other single people feel kind of desperate and lonely. And it's really, really important to be happy where you are. So we're going to talk about some ways to be happy. So the first thing I want to say, tip number one, is to stop looking for happiness outside of yourself. We tend to look at other people and think they're happier than we are. We look at couples and think, oh my God, they're so happy. And you look on Facebook and everybody looks happy. And the truth is that Facebook paints a picture that's not always accurate. It's not always true, that we only see a little tiny piece of somebody's life, and everybody struggles with things. And happiness is something that's an inside job. So, yes, did you have a question, Sarah?
Yeah, sorry. Can I ask you, please?
Yes.
Well, you talk about, like, people be happy, and you see, like, you should not look for happiness outside, and you should not, like, when you see people, happy, you just, like, get jealous, right? Because sometimes you're the one that you feel like, sometimes you feel lonely, and nobody's, like, by your side, and happiness really does matter in our lives. You cannot live without happiness. And especially, I'm actually 17 years old.
Oh.
I've been single for like the rest of my life. I never dated a boy in my life.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's just like I get used to. So happiness it doesn't depend on being single or, having a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Happiness, it depends on other stuff. Like if you have family, if you have, a roof, you have a house, you have everything. It just like, it doesn't, you have your health. This is happiness. You have a family. This is happiness.
That is correct.
Some people think that being single, it's just like a bad thing. But it's not for me. It's not actually. Sometimes you should think rationally.
Yeah,
Things happen for a reason anyway.
Yeah, well, you're very young to have figured all that out already at 17. So I think that's great. And I think that, you don't have to be in a rush to have a boyfriend. And I know people who are in their 20s and still haven't had a significant other, and it's fine. It has to be along your timeline. So many of the people who are listening today are older and have been through marriages that haven't worked out. And they may be feeling sad and lonely because they don't have family around them.
Yeah, sure. I really understand.
Yeah. So it's important to go out and find good friends, to find the things that make you happy. So whether it's doing hobbies, getting outside, getting good exercise, eating healthy, all those things are really, really important to living your best life first, because then when you actually get out and have a relationship, you will be coming from a place of strength and power and self-empowerment instead of loneliness and desperation. And so that's really, really important. So really be careful about looking outside of yourself and compare and despair, which is what happens a lot. You compare your life to somebody else's and think they have it all together. They're really happy. They found love. You didn't. And you really don't know what's going on underneath. And have you guys watched Saturday Night Live this past week, where they had an app called Settle? It was a little skit. You know what, Sarah? There's a lot of background noise where you are, so I'm gonna take you off for now, and you can write messages on the side, okay? Okay. So that was getting a little noisy. So The SNL had a funny skit. Anybody here want to write in the messages if you saw the skit called Settle? It was very, very funny. I just posted it to my Facebook wall. It was basically a play on all the dating apps and the dating sites, and it's saying women who are desperate, who want to settle, they already have the wedding dress, they just want a husband, and they don't really care who he is. So obviously we don't want that. That's a joke, but you don't want to settle. You want to live your best life to attract your best partner. Okay, so that's tip number one. Stop looking for happiness outside of yourself. Tip number two is to tell your gremlins to take a hike. So what I mean by this is your gremlins, your saboteur voices, all those inner voices that tell you that you're not good enough, that being single is a bad thing, that you need to be doing all kinds of things to be happy during the holidays. So those are gremlin voices. Those are the voices that keep you small and make you unhappy in your life. And the way to tame them is to notice them, notice those voices when they come into you, and tell them that they should go take a hike. So here's kind of how it works. And I learned a lot from Taming the Gremlin, which is a book by, I forgot his name, I'm sorry. God, if anybody knows it, you can let me know. But anyway, Tame Your Gremlin was a book that we read for coaching training when I was in life coach training. And I'm going to talk about 8 tricks to tame those gremlin voices that you have that tell you that you're not enough, or that like you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not thin enough, all those horrible voices that come in and make us feel terrible. So step number one, when you hear those voices, is to just breathe, take a breath. We don't do that enough. So take a quick, deep breath, and then acknowledge the gremlin voices. And I do know the name of the author. I just remembered his name is Rick Carson. And so acknowledge them. Just, they are going to show up. So just say, oh, I see you're showing up. I see that you're telling me that I'm not good enough once again. Then you want to redirect the gremlin. So this is about redirecting your focus. So you focus on, instead of your gremlin voice, focus on your positive traits. And this is an important next step. You want to thank your gremlin and thank them for showing up in your life, for keeping you safe, because your gremlins did show up at some point in your life to keep you safe. And now they're just keeping you small. So thank them for all the good they've done in the past. Then you want to change the narrative. So instead of you're a fat slob, or you're just such a desperate single. So let's talk about the weight, because this is what a lot of people talk about. And a lot of my clients think they have to somehow lose 20 pounds to be attractive enough. And so instead of saying, I'm so fat, say, I want to lose some weight. How can I do that? I want to get healthy. How can I do that? So you're changing the conversation from self-deprecation to, I want to do something about this. And then you want to bring yourself love, send yourself a loving message. And the messages that you get are telling you something. So also take time to write down those messages that the gremlin and the saboteur voices are telling you, because they are telling you something that you can learn from. So Brene Brown says, and Brene Brown's one of my most favorite speakers. She's a social worker. If you haven't heard of her, she has given amazing TED Talks on vulnerability and shame. And she says that that you should write your thoughts down and then later ask yourself if they're really true. And that's also the work of Byron Katie, which is to really interrogate those thoughts that you have and find out if they're really true. Without a doubt, are they really true? And then ask yourself, if they're not true, what would be the opposite? What would be, if you would turn it around, what would be the opposite? So you start to have more positive voices going on in your head. And often if you say, is it without a doubt true 100%? The answer is no. That you are not those things that your gremlin voices are saying. And so you want to redirect that conversation so that you have a voice inside your head that's loving and compassionate. It has to start from within. Okay, we have a question here from Divorce Force. And they say that we find many people affected by divorce are getting depressed as it is holiday time. They concentrate on what they do not have as opposed to the blessings still in their lives. I agree. How do you suggest that people magnify the good in their lives, and what are some good mental practices? Excellent question. So magnify the good in your life by having a gratitude list. So I really recommend, and that's tip number 3, is to start keeping a list of all the good that's in your life and really put your focus on the good. Now, even when things are really not good, there's always something good to find. And honestly, the people going through divorce often think about how they were treated. They feel like a victim. They might be in financial straits, and it's all a learning process. And if you can look at what you're learning instead of what is going wrong in your life, it really helps you to focus on what you can do. You don't feel as paralyzed by what you can't do. And I remember there was a point in my divorce when I was going through the worst part of it, where it felt like I was going through a terrible soap opera. Every day I had no idea what was going to happen. My ex-husband was going through a lot of anger, and it was pretty scary. And then things calmed down. But I was able to talk to friends at that time and be able to laugh about some of it and not take it to heart, because I knew it was just a phase. I also knew that my marriage was ending and that there was something better that was happening on the other end. So I think, focus on your health, focus on what you can do, and make a list every day, whether it's right before you go to sleep or when you wake up in the morning. Create that gratitude list. And I like to do it when I wake up. From the moment I take a breath and I'm grateful that I can breathe and that I woke up. That's the first thing I think of every single day. So there are so many things to be grateful of when your focus is on gratitude and not on what's missing. So any other questions, please put them in the side there, and I will be happy to answer. So let's talk about tip number 4, and that is to live in the present, not in the past and not in the future, but live right now for today, because that's all you can control. So again, I'm going to take you through the Byron Katie, is it true, kind of exercise, because this is a great exercise when you're feeling overwhelmed and you feel like nothing is good in your life. Think about one thing that you're struggling with. And I remember years ago, I had a client. I was doing business coaching, and my client was starting a new business and petrified that he would fail. And so what I did was I took him through, well, what would happen if you failed? And so we started going through all the possibilities of things that he was most afraid of. So he said, well, I will lose my business? I said, yes. And then what would happen? And he said, and then I will probably lose my home. I said, okay. And then what would happen? And he said, and then I'd probably be homeless and living on the street. And then he started laughing because he realized how absurd it was, because there was no way he was ever going to allow himself to become homeless. And I think sometimes we have this fear of something that's going to happen in our lives. But if we take it down the road and look at all the steps, we realize that our fears are worse than the actual reality. And so you need to really interrogate the thoughts that you have that take you out of the present and into the future or back into the past. So if it's, I'm going to be alone the rest of my life, or I'm going to lose everything I have, ask yourself, is this true? And, Byron Katie, if you don't know who she is, you should look it up. I recommend you look it up. She has talked to people who were homeless, who had terrible illnesses, and they were able to turn around their thoughts and really start to appreciate who they were and what they did have. And it's pretty amazing. So when you ask yourself, is this true? So that's the first thing you need to ask yourself. Then if it's yes or no, if it's yes, you go on to, can you absolutely know that it's true? Yes or no. Then you ask yourself, how do you react and what happens when you believe that thought to be true? Then the last part is, who would you be without that thought? And think about, who would you be without the thought that you are going to lose everything, that you are not going to ever find love again? Who would you be without that thought? And when you begin to look for contrary evidence to the limiting beliefs that you have about love, about relationships, about why you're still single, it helps you to move past the pain and into a much more positive mindset. So we have another question from Divorce Force. If you cannot share the holiday with your kids and that troubles you, what should you do? So I suggest, and this happens often with people who are going through divorce, that they don't have custody on certain holidays. They share custody, or sometimes they lose custody altogether of their kids, at least sometimes temporarily, sometimes more permanently, and that can be devastating. So what I suggest is, don't stay alone for the holidays. Invite people. If you don't get invited, have a party, invite people over, and create your own reality, create your own happy holiday. So years ago, this single woman came to me and she said, nobody ever invites me over for meals. And I can't stand it. It just is so depressing. And I said to her, do you ever invite anybody to your house? And she said, well, no, my kitchen, my living room is too small. My dining room is too small. And I said, you know what? You could have 2 people over. You could have 1 person over. And I think we need to really think beyond, maybe our place is small. Maybe we don't have all matching plates and silverware. Good friends don't care if your plates match. They don't care if you get takeout. They don't care if they eat food that's not gourmet. It's about the atmosphere. It's about creating a beautiful holiday atmosphere and not focusing on the minutia. Okay, so the next tip is to be positive and ditch that negative energy. So how do you be positive? One of the easiest ways to be positive is to smile. Welcome to the community. We have a new member. So smile. I mean, this seems so silly and easy, but it's something so critical when it comes to changing your attitude in life, is to exude warmth, positivity, happiness. I think that it's so important to smile. So I used to take walks with a friend, and she never made eye contact with anybody. And I would look at every single person that we'd pass and I'd smile and I'd say hello. And that's the kind of thing that just gets you out of yourself. I think when you're feeling sad, you're focusing inwards. So you really need to get out and focus outwards. So that's pretty much the 5 tips. And I just think it's all about appreciating the life you have, making sure you know how to deal with those gremlin voices, creating that gratitude list that keeps you focused on what you do have rather than what you don't have, and creating positivity by the words you say, by the smiles on your face. There's so many ways to be positive and to appreciate the life you have, and create the love in your life that you're going to surround yourself with. It's not just about your partner. It's about all the love in your life. It's about giving love to your friends, to the cashier at the grocery store. Really just get out of yourself and enjoy your life. And I see big high five. Thank you, Taylor Dean. And you get out there, meet people, smile, and say hello to a stranger. Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the love. And I would love to take some questions. How do you all feel about being single? If you are single during the holidays, what do you do to create your happiness? I'm going to take a drink of water. This is actually my very first blab that I'm doing by myself without a partner. And I have kind of come to the end of my material, and I'm here just to take your questions, and I'd love to hear from you. So let's be interactive. Any other tips that you can share? Because these are just small tips. We have, I am widowed, so the holidays are difficult. Yes, I can imagine that it is difficult when you're widowed. And how long have you been widowed? Okay, we have somebody who wants to join us. Hey, Walter.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah, so I've been widowed now for about 5 years.
Ah.
So yeah, and it was close to Christmas too when she passed away. So the holidays are not really the same anymore, right? But yeah, I agree with you. You need to get out there and meet new people, engage with them, and just just make yourself known.
Yeah. So how have you spent the last number of Christmases?
Well, I spend Christmas with my sister and my brother-in-law, and so we make it a family thing, right?
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And you can create rituals around the holidays that are new.
Sure.
That don't have anything to do with being a couple.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we have a comment from Lori, which this is her first holiday on her own, but she has her sons around and she's going to be going to parties. Great. It really doesn't change for me, except it's a little more hectic. Okay. So yeah, things can get hectic. And if you do have children, I mean, I know for me, when I first got divorced, I felt like I had to include my ex-husband in all of our holidays. And I did that for a long time until we had some boundary issues. And I realized that it wasn't working for me anymore. And so I stopped. And my kids were fine. They got used to knowing that they would come to me sometimes and they would go to him sometimes. And our holidays changed. And I think that, change is good.
Yeah, change is good sometimes. Yep.
Yeah, you can make the best
definitely.
of it.
Yeah.
I mean, change actually creates a new experience, and it's so important to get out of your comfort zone and to try things new, because that's how we grow as people. And so looking at the positives of either loss or divorce, the end of a relationship, I think that we can all learn from the experience. And, I know for me, some of the most important lessons in my life were learned post-divorce. And I had to get divorced to become the person that I became and to have this career that I have now, helping people find love. That would probably never have happened had I not gone through a difficult marriage. So change is good.
For me, I don't know which is harder. Going through a marriage is hard or losing someone. I suppose they both have their difficulty in a way. But
Yeah,
personally, I don't know which one's harder.
Well, I think loss is definitely in many ways harder, losing somebody. But, what I've also learned is that everybody's marriage is different. So for some people, their marriage, even with loss, was not a great marriage. And so a lot of people assume that if you're widowed, you had a fantastic marriage and everything was great. And for some people it was. So yeah. It's different for everybody.
I had that. We had a great marriage.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. And we're married for 17 years, and, everything was great, but things happen, right? So
have you dated? Have you moved on?
No, I haven't dated. No. Am I able to move on? Yeah. I can move on, but no, I haven't dated anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any special reason why you haven't?
Not really. There's really no reason. No, I just haven't.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to challenge you to date in the new year.
I will certainly try and do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I have a very good friend who passed away a couple of years ago, and she was one of my best friends. And her husband is just starting to get out again and date. And it's not easy because he's got kids at home. He's got a full plate, but he's finally ready to start moving on. And I think, you've got to live life to the fullest. We don't have to, but it really is good to. It's nice to know that the person, nobody can replace your wife, but
no.
you can find love again.
Sure you can. It's just finding the right person. I think the biggest thing for me is I already found the person that I loved, mm-hmm. and that I spent my life with, and like am I going to find that again? That's a question for me.
So you won't find out unless you get out there and start dating, and you can't replace her.
No,
but you can. I believe there's more than one person for every person. I do believe that we have, especially different stages of our lives, we have different needs, and we can find people who are better complements and better for us in some ways. Different. They're all going to be different. So I think if you're not looking to find the exact same thing that you had, but that you're looking to find companionship and love again, there's somebody out there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So love in the new year.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to jump off. It was great talking to you.
You too, Walter. Good luck.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too.
Happy holidays.
You too. Thanks. All right, guys. Any other questions? Because I'm going to jump in about 2 minutes if I don't get any more questions. It's been fun. And I hope that you've taken away the 5 tips to stay happy and sane during the holidays if you're single. Remember that being single is not a disease. It's not something that you have to cure. It's something that you have to own and really feel good about. And when you do that, you will be much happier for the holidays and for your whole life. So happy holidays, everybody, and take good care. Bye-bye.